Welcome to First Congregational Church of San Jose. I'm Reverend Dr. Celestine Fields. I'm the senior minister here at the church. We are recording live in my office at 1980 Hamilton Avenue in Campbell, California. Today we are recording our very first podcast specifically for this church. The series of podcasts that we're going to be recording will lead up to Silicon Valley Pride Weekend, August 24th and 25th, to be held in downtown San Jose. We hope to see you there. Here at FCCSJ, we are an LGBTQIA plus open and affirming congregation. No matter who you are and where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. For this series, we are talking with people who have decided to become a part of this community because we accept people in their full humanity. Yes, with us today is Geoffrey, who has been attending the church here since early summer of last year. And we're excited to be sending Geoffrey off to college in the fall. Welcome, Geoffrey. We are so glad that you are here for this podcast and also that you are a member of this community.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Celeste. It's wonderful to be here. I've honestly really enjoyed my time here, and I can't wait to be on the podcast.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So why don't we just jump right on in?
Of course.
Wonderful. Can you tell our listeners your coming out story, if you're comfortable to do that?
Starting straight out with that?
Yes,
goodness.
let's jump right in.
Going for the punches, my goodness. So if I were to start it, unlike a lot of people I found, well, mine is quite short. It's mostly just that during middle school, I started, because of puberty, I started having feelings, urges, that whole shebang. And then I discovered during one of my classes that, we're having an LGBTQIA+, not Pride Festival, rather it was just kind of here's some information about it, here's some info about it. And I saw it and I was like, that being gay, that's me. It's me. It wasn't really a conflicted sort of thing. It was never a self-hateful sort of thing. It was just kind of that's me. And then I told my parents about it. I think a few days after. I'm terrible at keeping secrets.
Good. Good.
And I told them, they were like, we accept you, we love you, that whole typical
Beautiful.
Accepting parent thing. Yes. And here I am. It was never really a difficult thing for me.
Yeah, wonderful. And how did you find your way here to First Congregational Church of San Jose?
Well, to start that off, I have to start out with, I actually had therapy appointments the year before that I was starting and still going through at the time. And then to get to the drive there, the building that I go to was actually across the street from the Congregational church. And so during the Pride months, or actually no, not even during the Pride months, but during the entire year, I saw that the doors and flags and all those things were out and about.
Yes.
And I was like, interesting. Yes. And so I went to my therapy, I noticed it, and just kind of planted a bit of a seed in my mind. And so I kind of took note of it. And so during the summer, I woke up early some Sunday mornings, and I realized, I'm quite bored. I'm gonna go, and I want to dress up in nice clothes. I have an idea. And so I started going to nearby churches so I could experience what the atmosphere is like. And after a few times, I went to here. I found the kind of welcoming, very cozy, goofy kind of atmosphere of the services, and I stuck with it ever since.
Yeah, and actually, the first time I was in this community was on March 3rd when I was just a guest preacher. I wasn't a member here, I wasn't the minister here, and I remember standing at the door doing the greeting after service, and you walked up to me, or I called you over. More than likely, I called you over, and asked you what your name was, and asked you how did you find your way here, because there aren't that many young adults here in the church. Not that I have seen so far. I've only seen maybe about 3 of them. And so I thought it was pretty amazing that you kind of found your way here and to come to church, and you wanted something to do on a Sunday, because you're bored. Now you shared something new that you wanted to get dressed up, and so, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I honestly, I've had this same story of how I came to the church for a while. I'm pretty sure I actually relayed it to you when you first asked me.
Yeah. My first time that I was ever here, you told me that story, and just you're very instrumental in my being here, and just how open you were to share about what brought you here. And it was meaningful, the reason why you came, and that let me know that this was a welcoming congregation, just like you described. And so I want to ask you about the doors on the lawn. So there are the pride flag, pride colors, the rainbow colors of pride on the lawn on those doors. And those doors travel from church to church. And so if you saw those doors out there, that's a miracle that you saw them, because it's going to move somewhere else to another church. And what did those doors mean to you when you saw those doors?
Well, they meant what, like, a lot of the other iconography of the church meant, that, like, hey, we're accepting, please come to church.
Right.
Kind of like cry of, like, no, we're not, like, stuck in our old ways. We are moving forward, and we can be a home for you. Right.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways you think that this congregation could attract more young people like yourself, who are not necessarily gay, or whatever, LGBTQ. I always get all the letters.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. Let me get it right. LGBTQIA plus.
Yes, that's a full acronym.
That may be LGBT, but also may have loved ones, or their friends are LGBT. How could we do outreach to younger people? Because everyone's not going to walk in like you did, right?
I suppose, like, if I were to just, like, spitball ideas, and I suppose just, like, having more kind of, like, very open, kind of, like, not loud, but more of just kind of, like, very, like, clear that, like, oh, there's a thing happening, kind of, like, events, festivals, like, at the church or around the church, and being able to, like, spread that kind of, like, story, that kind of, like, tale of, like, oh, we are an accepting church, oh, we are a thing, whether that be on social media, whether that be through word of mouth, whether that be through stories. And I believe that that's, a pretty good way to reach people. Of course, how to get people in if they're, like, much more shy than, well, I don't know. I've never really, like, been able to be in that perspective a lot.
Right. What about outreach into colleges and other younger organizations? How can a church reach those places?
Well, I think the best way would just be, because I know, like, with a lot of other churches, they kind of, like, have a thing of, like, oh, go spread the word of Jesus.
Right.
And so, like, actually, this happened, like, very recently to me. I think, actually, like, a few days ago, I had a, like, pool party with one of my friends, and, like, one of like, my friend's friend, who I'm pretty sure they remember telling me that they didn't really actually like hanging out with.
Right.
Basically, they were a part of, like, a much more kind of, like, traditional kind of church, and they kind of, like, went up to me, and, like, the vibes of what they were saying were basically like, hey, do you want to go join our church? Man, wouldn't that be fun?
Right.
And they kind of had that kind of, like, like, kind of, like, sweet and nice, but only on the surface, kind of, like, Christian, like, attitude that, like, I personally don't really favor.
Right.
And so I think if we were to, like, try to reach out to colleges, I don't really think that approach would be very successful.
Right.
I think probably the best thing to do would just be kind of, like, I don't know, like, set up a booth if they have, like, oh, here's, like, club services, or, like, have, like, sort of thing, and just, like, being able to, like, spread that, like, hey, we exist, we are a thing that happens, and we have, like, these things, we have, like, these sorts of events, we are, like, pretty goofy and chill, and if you want to come over, you can if you want to, and I think that will, like, just, like, information spreading again will be helpful.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that, we've been talking a little bit about a fall festival. Myself and Marianne, our family ministries director, doing a fall festival. So I don't know, maybe we can do some publicizing in the college about our festival. Wouldn't it be awesome to have a band, okay, that's doing, like, pop, dance, and classic rock, okay?
But the money, the expenses, there's a budget.
You know what? I don't hear that much here. I have not heard that much here, but I'm new. I've only been here I think I'm in my third or fourth week. And so what I hear is that, for projects like this, let's see what we can do to make that happen. It's a very positive church community, and very much into doing ministry. They have ministry teams, and not like your typical committees of churches, but actually really want to do things in the community and be known in the community. And so the LGBTQIA plus is something that was one of the first missions that they wanted to work on. So we're going in on that and really doing that up really big. So we'll see what we'd be able to do. Is there something here, Geoffrey, that you would want for your own journey in a faith community, in a community like this?
Well, there isn't really anything I'd like to add, really. The things and the events that the church has already been going to have been enough for me. And also, considering I've only been here for, like, one full, like, rotation of, like, church activities, I don't really have, like, much of an opinion of, like, what to add. I very much enjoy the, like, church... Well, not the church service, the Pride Parade, like, volunteering, which I am going to be doing this year.
Wonderful. Good.
Yeah,
See, I'll see you there.
Like those.
Yes.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I'll be in the booth rather than like the parade. I'll go be like yelling at people to be like, "Hey, look at us! We're so cool!"
Right. Yeah. That's great. And so I see you on Sundays in worship. That's when I see you, Sunday mornings. Tell us a little bit about your worship experience, because everyone experiences something different in worship. Some people come for music, some people come for sermons, some people come for the people, okay? Some people come to be inspired, those kind of things. Tell me about your experience.
I would describe myself as being in that third camp. The sermons and like what they say themselves are not really what grabbed me. It's more so the community members, and like they very much kind of focus on like, let's go do some things, let's go do charity work, let's go do activist work, let's go like have events and do those kind of like fun things and be kind of like a church hold of like community. I feel like that's kind of like what kind of like got me into.
Right. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about your faith journey?
My faith journey. I grew up in a Catholic church when I was like little, and well, I still go to it time to time with my family, but I'd say over the years, me and my sister kind of like pushed back against like going there all the time. Her much more so. I believe she had some more like traumatizing experiences with that church, but I will not describe them in detail.
Thank you.
And so thus, well, we became this kind of church family that would only go for Easter and Christmas and then not really any time else.
We call that Christers.
Christers,
yes.
It was a bit like that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really like have like that kind of faith.
Right.
I definitely do feel like I also kind of like had the kind of like typical kind of teenage journey with like faith, wherein I was forced to go to like communion classes. So I like, oh, get your Holy Communion.
Right.
And I went through like the typical like teenage edgy phase of like, oh, God's not real. He can't be proven. That's so bad. Kind of like a rebellion against that.
Yes.
But I do feel like it's definitely kind of like mellowed out into like God's there. He's cool.
Right.
He's a pretty fun man. His son's pretty cool from what I've heard. He's a pretty cool guy. And I feel like that's kind of like where my faith is kind of like mellowed out. It isn't really this like severe thing that like touches my heart and like brings tears to my eyes.
Right.
It never was.
Right.
For me, that was art.
Right.
And and so what's left of like what my faith is just the community that upholds around it, the actions that people do to represent what God has taught them. I feel that is kind of like an important part.
That's right. Yeah, and I want to talk about that a little bit, but I want to go back to the statement about Christers and tell you my experience. When I was growing up, we were Christers. We only went to church on Christmas and Easter. And I'm telling you, Easter came around. My mom had these big giant hats. Like, where were they at the rest of the year? You know, these gorgeous little dresses she wore and these big pink hats. And we only went Christmas and Easter time. But here I am sitting as a minister, you know, and I did go to church school on Sunday. She put me on this bus to go to church school. And we only, on a bus, yes. And we only attended church on Christmas and Easter. And I would go there for Sunday school. And so that was enough for me to put in just enough faith into being a minister. It was enough, you know, and never really attended worship. And that's everything. That's everything for me. Yeah. And so, even though you went on Christmas and Easter, you're here.
I am quiet.
Yes, you're here. And so I wanted to talk about the messages that LGBTQIA plus folks receive from other Christians or other religions, you know, that are difficult. And can you tell us about your experience with that?
Well, I think there was one time during like my Catholic church where like I think they used kind of like there was like a famous gay man who might have been a part of the congregation. I don't fully remember, who like died. And so but I think I remember like I think he might have not like fully been Christian, and yet like they use their image, like his image,
Right.
like after his death as kind of like a representation, like of. I mean, like as kind of like not a representation of, but like more like an advertisement for like church. I was like, that's kind of weird, you know. but besides that, I haven't really ever really experienced or at the very least noticed it. I don't know.
Right.
Someone might have been homophobic to me, and I just didn't see them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So we'll finish up. We'll have one question, and it might be the hardest one as we wrap up here.
Oh, we're finishing up. Goodness.
Yeah. Tell us about your thoughts on God's idea of who you are.
I don't really understand the question.
What do you believe God thinks of you?
I suppose he just thinks of me how he thinks of all of his other like kids. Like this is a human. Like they're going on their journey. I don't know. They make some mistakes sometimes, but they're trying their best, and they do some like pretty cool things because of the circumstances that they were born with.
Right.
That's cool. And yeah, I don't really like think of like God as like being able. I mean, actually, he probably could, like, if he wanted to, like, pay attention to everyone on, like, a very intimate and, like, emotional scale. So I suppose that he could be like it with me. But, like, for me, since I don't really, like, have that, like, extremely, like, ingrained faith, he doesn't really feel like he's watching over me. It feels more kind of like a microwave, like, not a microwave, but, like, a little, like, background radiation.
Okay.
That's, like, also there.
Right. So there's, like, God's presence is there, but not necessarily God appear looking down on you and protecting you and taking care of you and all of these things.
Yeah, I would describe it as kind of like a present, but more so kind of just like a thing that's like, if I don't really like pay attention to it, it just isn't, I can just kind of like not really see it and just kind of like disappears and like fades away. And then like when I think about it, like, oh yeah, God is kind of, that is like one of the things that he does. Yeah. And then kind of like fades back in a little bit. And I'm like,
right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So the more you pay attention, the more God is there.
Well, yes.
Yeah. So maybe I'll talk about that a little bit on Sunday, just a little bit. And do you know, Geoffrey, that anything that you say in front of a pastor can be used in a sermon, but we don't say your name.
Oh, thank goodness. At least I have anonymity.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I would never use your name, but an idea, the one that you just had, I really like the idea of that about God, that the more you seek God, you can find God.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why in so many like fictional settings and fictional worlds, a god's power is based around like how many people like worship them.
Yes.
Because attention is, well, creation.
Right. Yeah. Attention is creation.
In the sense of creating a god.
Yes. I love that.
Poetry.
Yes. Mic drop.
Boom. Boom.
I love that. Well, Geoffrey, thank you so much for spending time with me this afternoon and being so brave and sharing vulnerably with the listeners here at First Congregational Church. And I'm sure that they're going to love this first podcast and hearing more about you and your journey. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. That flatters me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey.